All right. So most of you guys know me. I'm Gregory Bennett. I've been investing for many years. Um, part of the reason why I wanted to do a webinar tonight on Section 8 investing is because I discovered Section 8 voucher holders many, many years ago. I bought my first property at 23 years old, a year out of college, and I started buying properties, one a year. And when I got to the third year, I bought a property in Fort Lincoln, bought it for 99,000. It was a three-bedroom, two bath. And my buddy said, you should rent it out to a voucher holder. And I said, and I didn't really know what that meant. And he said, the DC government will pay you your rent. They'll pay the rent. You'll get a tenant in there. The tenant's probably going to stay 10, 15 years, and they're going to take really good care of the property. And so I did my own research and found out that Section 8 is a freaking gold mine. It's like my biggest fear for buying and holding a property is not getting paid. With a voucher holder, Section 8, and there's other programs, you don't have to worry about that. And so I clung to that. And I said, every property that I buy, I'm going to rent it out Section 8. And that's what I've done over the years. Um, I was at one of my properties this morning at a voucher holder that kind of graduated from the program, but they had been in the house for 11 years. And so they had been in my property for 11 years. The good thing about they moved out, so now I've got to turn over the property. I was happy that I put really good material in the property. So I put really nice cabinets. I put really nice appliances. I put nice countertops, real hardwood flooring, so that now when I'm turning the property over, I don't have to spend that much money. So I'm happy about that. And so the property that I went to today, I purchased the property for 150,000 11 years ago. I ran the comps today because I wanted to give myself some options. Should I continue to rent? Should I sell it? Should I refinance? Comps are at 490,000. And so it's like almost tripled in value. So I bought it for 150. I actually put about 50 into it. So I was all in at 200. So and now the value is 490. And I didn't, over the 11 years, I never ever had to worry about getting a payment. Now they were partial voucher tenants, so which means they paid part of the rent, and this is a property in Anne Arundel County. Anne Arundel County paid the other part, but as the years have gone by, they had to pay more and more and more because they started making more. Um, and to the point now where, they qualify to buy a house. So they kind of graduated. But I say all that to say that's what you get from Section 8. And in part, those are some of the reasons why you want to invest in Section 8 housing. And so I consider myself a Section 8 investor. And in part because I just want to make sure that I have a busy schedule, I have a busy lifestyle. I don't have time to be a bill collector. I get that money in my account. I don't care if we're going through a recession, a pandemic. I don't care what the climate is. I don't care what the economy is. Um, I get my money in my account every single month, whether it's through a county or a city, it's in the account every single month. So I'm going to go through a few slides describing exactly what Section 8 is, especially Section 8, how it works in Baltimore City. I know a lot of you guys want to invest in Baltimore and buy and hold in Baltimore. I've got some of my coaching students on here that's going to help along the way. And so, but this webinar is primarily for you guys. Feel free to ask questions, raise your hand. Um, ask a question in the chat as we go along. We'll probably be here for about 45 minutes to an hour. And so I want you guys to get a lot out of this because you can really build wealth buying and holding real estate and build wealth with Section 8 investing. So, what is Section 8? Section 8 is a federal housing choice voucher program. Now, there's two types of vouchers. There's a full voucher where, depending on the circumstance, the voucher holder doesn't pay anything. And then there's a partial. So they either pay partial, depending on how much money they make, and then the city or the county pays the rest, or the city or the county pays the full amount. Government helps qualified tenants pay rent, create stable rental demand. And so there's a lot of demand. Baltimore, I was once told recently that the list spans for like 5 years. And so some people stay on the list that long because it just takes that long because there's just so many people. The majority of the people in Baltimore, 60% rent. Even the working class rent 60%. And a lot of them are voucher holders. And so Baltimore is just a great city um, for Section 8. Baltimore in itself is the number one residential rental city in the United States because you can buy low and rent high. And the rents there are pretty high. I have a slide for that. All right. Why investors use Section 8? Reliable monthly rents, very, very reliable, high demand for affordable housing, often strong rent levels, and long-term tenants possible. And so, for all of these reasons, is why I just love Section 8. I like that I can almost set it and forget it. Now, I stay in contact with my tenants. Um, the Section 8 program, they come out and do an inspection at least once a year. So it's just a great program. I've got Kia on the line with us. She's part of my coaching program, and she's become an expert on Section 8. So Kia, let me ask you the question: why do you like Section 8?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I like Section 8 because you have guaranteed rent every month. Um, you also have, in the instance there is reasons to possibly move for eviction. Um, just telling your Section 8 tenant that, hey, you may lose your voucher if you're in breach of your lease. Um, that helps them to completely like kind of act differently because a lot of them they've been on the wait list for Section 8 10, 15 years, so they really don't want to lose their voucher. You also have security deposits are paid out by DCHA, which is currently on freeze, but that is something that they do. In the instance where there was the government freeze, yes, Section 8 landlords were not receiving their rent, but as soon as the freeze was lifted, we received retroactive back payment rent. So yeah, I'm really pro Section 8 for those various reasons.
Good. All right. Why Baltimore is a strong Section 8 market, affordable property prices. Um, it's not uncommon to buy a property in what I would consider a C plus, B minus neighborhood, and be able to rent that property and start off making close to $1,000 a month in positive cash flow. High voucher participation, strong rental demand. We've talked about that, and attractive rent to price ratios. And so I'll go over rent to price ratios on another slide. All right, so this is typical. And so one of my investors recently purchased a property for 100,000. They put about $60,000 into the property. They bought the property. It was a three-bedroom, one bath, about 1,300 square feet above grade. So below grade was about five, about 400 square feet, 4 to 500 square feet. It's an interior unit. They turned the basement into a one bedroom, one bath. It had the ceiling height 7 feet. And so they put about $60,000 into the property. So they was all in at 160. Their payment currently is about $1,300 a month, and they're renting it out Section 8 for 2,300. They're getting $1,000 a month in positive cash flow, and that's typical in Baltimore. So this is a typical scenario. This is one of our coaching students, and those that's their numbers. How Section 8 works. And so the tenant pays either a portion or they have a full voucher. And so, and then you can contact the Section 8 office and just let them know that you're interested. You can use a tenant placement company to help you find a Section 8 tenant. You can use a real estate agent as well. But a tenant, they pay a portion or they pay a full voucher. The housing authority pays the remainder if it's a partial voucher. Payments typically arrive monthly right into your bank account, generally on the first of the month, and it provides for stable rental income. And so, let me go back to you, Akia. Tell us the difference, number one, between a partial voucher and a full voucher, and then also whether you can pay all of the rent. I mean, you can pay the utilities, I mean, or have the tenant pay their utilities.
Okay. So regarding the partial versus full, so the maximum percentage that a Section 8 tenant will pay is 30%. And how they determine that portion is based off of, I mean, they look at their, their income, their expenses, to determine how much the tenant will pay. Um, so that's partial versus full. So full, every month you just get your full rent from DCHA. This is for DC. That's where my Section 8 tenants are. Versus partial, I get my payment from DCHA, but then my tenant is also obligated to pay me a portion. Now, regarding your second question, Greg, as far as, so you as a landlord, you can opt to have um, your DCHA payment, and DCHA stands for DC Housing Authority, and they're the entity that pays out the voucher payments for DC voucher holders. You can opt as a landlord, you can opt for DCHA to pay um, factor in not only the rental portion, but also utilities, which means your rental or your payment every month will be generally higher than what it would be if you didn't have utilities included. Or you as a landlord can say, no, I want the tenant to pay for utilities, and I just want the rent from DCHA. So that's a decision, you as a landlord you can make and crunch numbers and see what makes sense for you.
Give us a scenario of why one would be able to get a full voucher.
Um, so one of my tenants right now has a full voucher. Her mom, so the voucher holder is actually her mom. The When I say her, it's the daughter who has power of attorney over the mom. But long story short, the mom is disabled. And she has no income. I think she's on SSI or, yeah, Social Security, right? I think that's SS. So she has, yeah, she doesn't work. She has no income. She's disabled. So she has a full voucher. And then in that instance, when I first moved her into the unit, I actually had them paying utilities. But then when a year passed and then I went back to Section 8 and they were giving me 2100. Then the next year, I said, hey, I would like for an increase. And I'll also cover utilities, and they're now giving me 3,100. So in no instance will utility, we're talking gas, water, and electric. In no instance will it be 1,000. This is a two-bedroom, one bath. So for me, when I crunch numbers, it actually was beneficial for me to then cover utilities.
Okay. We do have a question. Does it only apply towards single family homes, or can a multi-unit house qualify for Section 8? You want to take that?
Yes, a multi-unit can qualify for Section 8.
As a matter of fact, you have a Section 8
Mhm.
tenant in one of your four units.
Yeah.
G. Marie, did you have a question? Go ahead. You're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I unmuted on camera. So what happens when she says she Section 8 pays the utilities? What happens if the utilities start to hypothetically were to exceed the stipend that they've included? How do you handle that? Does it go back on the tenant or do you just pay it yourself?
It does. So when the tenants pay it themselves, um, they're not necessarily, Section 8 isn't paying it. They're paying it out of their pocket. And the gas and the electric goes back to the tenant. It's on the tenant. The water bill, though, they're responsible for the water bill, but that stays on the property. So the water bill's also the owner's or the landlord's responsibility if they don't pay, because that stays on the property, which means it stays in their name, in the landlord's name.
Right. So she
But
said she was getting
no, go ahead.
she said she went back to them and got an increase and is now paying went from 2,100 to 3,100, and no way would the utilities ever be 1,000. My question was hypothetical. What if the utilities started to exceed the increase that she received? Then who would be responsible? Would it be her or the tenant?
You want to answer that, Kia? I mean, it's whatever, whomever. So when you initially set it up, you tell Section 8, they give you a choice whether you want to pay the utilities or the tenant. And if you choose to have the tenant pay the utilities, then everything's on the tenant. And so the tenant would have to pay that. If I'm understanding your question correctly. So
Yes.
like Charlene is saying,
What I'm
it's
trying to get
whatever. It's
clarification.
no, go ahead, Jean Marie.
What I'm trying to get clarification in a hypothetical situation, if the utilities that the landlord has agreed to pay now because of the increase, right?
Hmm.
What if the tenant's usage starts to exceed the increase? Then who's liable? Is the landlord liable or does now the tenant pay the additional?
Landlord's liable.
Okay, thank you.
But I will say, so once I switched from not paying utilities to paying utilities, I did send a notice to my tenant. If you go over collectively $250 for your electric and gas, that will now fall on you. Water, I have to cover water because for anything over a single family in DC, if it's not separately metered, the landlord is required to pay for it, which my 4 unit isn't separately metered. So I did let her know that she can't go over 250. And that wasn't a number I just made up. That was a number based off of looking at the average gas and electric bill for each unit.
Thank you.
And so the way the water bill is handled, you guys, the way I've handled the water bill goes into the tenant's name, but I also get a copy of the water bill. So I call the water company and say, I want to also get a copy of the water bill. I want to keep up with the water bill. If they don't pay it, I mean, there's a number of different. If they don't pay it, I have to pay it. If they don't pay it, theoretically they've breached the contract, they've breached the lease, and you can take them to landlord tenant court, um, uh, to get them to pay that. or they breach the lease to get them evicted if they never. I've got so one of our investors now. She just bought a property in Baltimore, and the tenant keeps saying that they're going to pay. The tenant's been in there for about 3 months now, 3 or 4 months. They keep saying that they're going to pay the water bill, and they're not paying the water bill. And she's like, Greg, what should I do? And she says, can you call them? So I called them, and they said, yeah, we're going to pay it. And they just haven't paid it. So she's thinking about, they're a voucher holder. She's getting over $2,000 a month for them, but she's thinking that she may have to either get them evicted, talk to the case manager, do something. Now, could you go over there and turn the water off? Could you do that? If you want to know the answer to that, just text me, okay? Because
I'm like, you don't want to say when it's recorded, Greg.
this is being recorded, so text me. Let me make sure I've answered all the questions. This is okay. I think Shalene, are you good? I think Shalene is good. All right. Any other questions?
Yes.
You have a question?
As a new investor who I want to do what you are saying, but I'm not sure if I qualify to do it.
Qualified to purchase a property?
Yeah, to purchase a property that I know in my mind I want to turn into a Section 8.
So I think that's a good question. I think first and foremost, um, I think putting yourself in a position to qualify um, is the first thing that you've got to think about. I mean, you've got to put yourself in that position. And so what does that mean? You've got to save some money. Most of us are buying these properties um, using a hard money lender. So we use a hard money lender. We put down somewhere around 10%. We've got some lenders that we know that's less than 10%. So we're putting 10% down or less. We've got to assess the amount of rehab cost. We go to a lender, and we know the local lenders in Baltimore, D.C., Prince George's County, and we get qualified. Now they're going to be looking at a credit score. They basically finance you on the merits of the property, though. Hard money is a short-term loans, generally about 12 months. They do look at past performance, meaning they want to know that you've got experience doing this. And there's ways to get past that. Sometimes they'll just um, initially have you put down more as a down payment until you can show past performance, and then you get qualified. Um, I would have a coach or a mentor if it's your first time doing it to help you out and walk you through the entire process. And then, like I said, I would hire a tenant placement company, a real estate agent, to help you place the Section 8 tenant. And then once the tenant is in there, and then you want to refinance out of the hard money loan into what's called a DSCR loan. And
Okay,
that's basically the process.
with that being said, Greg, I'm gonna ask you this question. I told somebody what I want to do. I let them know that I personally didn't. I don't think I have enough money, and they let me know that I could get the money from them. How do I? I think I heard you say one time before, you have to show where you get the money from. If I get it from that person don't want to put themselves under the microscope. How do I get that done? Or can I get it done?
Yeah, you can definitely get that done. So within our program, we actually have um, some of the members do joint venture agreements together, multi-member LLCs, and they actually buy properties in the same scenario that you just described. Um, one may have the credit, but no cash. The other may have cash with no credit. They do a joint venture and initially put the house in the person who has the credit, put it in their name or their LLC, and then they have a separate agreement saying that the other partner is part of it. They have a joint venture agreement, um, and they put up the money, or they put the money into the partner with the money. They'll wire the money into the other partner's account. Now, with a hard money lender, the money doesn't have to be seasoned in the account. If it's a traditional lender, traditional lender is going to want to know where that money came from. Hard money lender, they don't really look at that. So basically, that's how that works. They would wire you the money. Let's say you needed 10, 15,000, they would just put that into your account, but you would have an agreement with them. And so I do think that that's a great way of getting started by partnering with people. You can buy more properties. And so I've partnered with a number of people, a number of my coaching students over the years to buy and hold properties. And we did what I call a long-term flip, where we bought the properties, we renovated the properties, we did the burn method. So we bought the properties, we renovated the properties, um, we rented the properties out, refinanced, and then after 5 years, we actually sold the properties. And so
Okay.
that's something that you can think about doing.
With that being said, I'm going to tell you, I went out what you call looking at properties today, and I saw a building that had two dwelling places next to each other that looked like they both needed something. And I thought about how can I, with no good credit, no money, is that something that I would have to talk to a hard money lender with, or is that something that I need to team up with somebody with? Or if is it possible for me to make that work for me?
I think what you should do, Olivia, is this. Why don't you call me tomorrow and we can go over that scenario?
Thank you. What time tomorrow is a good time?
10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Um, Aki, a question for you. Are Section 8 tenants problematic? What's been your experience with Section 8? We probably all have heard the myths that they tear up your properties. What's been your experience?
I think if you do like really good screening, you'll have no problems at all. I will say when I purchased my 4 unit, two of the tenants were Section 8 that I would have never picked, and they were everything that could go wrong with tenants went wrong with these tenants. But when I selected my Section 8 tenants, they're impeccable. Like I can knock on their door. I always say, like, I can, if I have to go in there for anything unexpected, they're cleaner than me, right? Like they're super clean, super tidy. And I would say it's because my screening process is really strong.
I always like to say that there's no such thing as a bad tenant. There's only bad landlords. And so if you do a good job being a landlord, um, it starts with screening the tenants. I still check their credit, even though Section 8 is paying. I'll do a background criminal check. And so all of those things, and then be attentive to their needs. Because each house I look at as a business. This is a business for me. And so I want to take care of that. And I want to take care of that business. So if there's something that goes wrong with the house within reason, I'm not running over, but I've got a contractor, somebody running over to fix it. Because just like the scenario that I gave you guys in the beginning, I was at one of my properties today. That property has over $200,000 in equity in it.
Mm.
These people, and I know of some other landlords that the tenant has paid off the house. Well, the tenant didn't pay it off. Section 8 paid it off. But the same tenant stayed in that property. And so my experience has been wonderful for Section 8 tenants. I've really never ever had a bad one. But if you start with the premise that there's no such thing as a bad tenant, there's only bad landlords. If you start with that mindset, everything's going to work out for you. Now, obviously, there's here and there is going to be some bad tenants, but I have the attitude that these are great because they're helping me build wealth. And but at the same time, I'm providing them um, shelter. And that's the number one fear that we all have is making sure we have a roof over our head. And I'm providing them, in most cases, not just shelter, but in great neighborhoods where their kids can go to great schools. And so it's a win-win for everyone. Go ahead, G. Marie.
And I have something to add too, Greg, to that point once Jean Marie is done.
Well, I don't think G. Marie knows how to unmute herself. So you go ahead.
So that's interesting, Greg, that so I never thought of that. So my two tenants that were very bad, again, I didn't pick them. I just bought a 4 unit and they just happened to be in them. I could tell the prior landlord was a slumlord. So it's interesting to go to your point, right? Like there's no such thing as a bad tenant. It's just bad landlords. And I think the prior landlord was just looking for like a warm body. And the same way you have bad market tenants, right? Is the same way you would have bad Section 8 tenants. Like the stigma that all Section 8 tenants are bad, that's just not factual at all. But you have bad people, right? Like Section 8 or not, you still have bad people. So
But you've got to treat them right too.
yeah.
Treat them with respect, with dignity. I try to when I renovate my properties, I renovate them, even though I know I'm gonna hold the property, I renovate them like I'm gonna flip the property. Now, I primarily do that because I know at some point in time in my lifetime, um, I'm going to want to sell the property and I don't want to have to go back and buy new cabinets, new countertops, all that. So as an initial matter, I put in good material. But I try to treat them with respect, with dignity, because honestly, they're doing me a huge favor. They're helping me build wealth while I help them upgrade their lifestyle. All right, G. Marie, talk to me.
So my question was, you kind of said it that you don't really check credit, but I was wanting to ask her because she said her screening process. So my question was, do you do background like if you can give me like a Reader's Digest condensed version of your screening process? Do you check their credit? What are some of your requirements to help us to be successful choosing tenants?
So I do check their credit, but I don't care about their score. I do a criminal background check, and absent like someone having a sexual crime, right? Like you can just use your imagination on what that would consist of. I couldn't care what their background check would turn up. I do call their current landlord as well as their prior landlord. I also I call their job. So I like to select Section 8 tenants who have a job. So for my disabled tenant, her daughter, who has had a power of attorney over her, actually worked for DCHA, which was like really funny. So she had steady income. So I check their pay stubs. I also do a home drop-in. Now it is not legal to pick a tenant based off of doing a drop-in, but as a savvy landlord, you can kind of arrange to just drop in their current place because how they keep their current home or their current apartment is exactly how they're going to keep your apartment or home.
Yeah.
Hi, Olivia.
How you doing?
I owe you a call back. I'm doing great. And you?
I'm glad you recognize that, but that's not what I was going to talk about right
Talk to me.
Okay. I was just wondering from what you just said, If a person doesn't have a tenant, when you do the background check, you find out they don't have a landlord or that kind of agreement. They just live. Say for instance, I let my niece live with me. We don't have a landlord tenant agreement, but she can live with me and she don't have to she do or don't have to pay rent. How do that affect your decision? Say she don't have we don't have no landlord tenant agreement. She just stay with me. She don't pay me rent, or she pay me rent, or whatever. Either way, it's nothing on record. How do that affect your decision?
I would handle that on a case by case basis. I will say I have come across actually a handful of Section 8. We're really supposed to call them voucher holders. Section 8 is like no longer, right? So I've come across a handful of voucher holders they got their voucher while they were in shelters. Um, one of them was actually lovely, right? Like I was like, I would have her as a tenant. I was looking for tenants for a friend of mine. One of them was very lovely. So yeah, in those instances where, they don't have a landlord, they're coming out of a shelter or kind of like your niece's scenario, I think I would handle that on a case by case basis.
Okay.
Um, James is asking what type of insurance is obtained when purchasing a property to renovate. And so it's called builder's risk insurance. And so while you're renovating, you want to have builder's risk insurance. Jeff is asking, can you use rent spree to manage your rental? You can use rent spree, Jeff, but just know that, the rent payments are coming from the Section 8 office. All right. And we'll talk about how to get started in a minute. Let's see. All right. So here's what's this? So these are good examples, you guys. These are good examples of the Section 8 rent limits. And in Baltimore, these are Baltimore numbers, and it depends on where you are in the city. And so for a two-bedroom, they're getting about between 1,400 and 1,700. For a three-bedroom, between 1,700 and 2,100. And for a four-bedroom, 2,000 plus. And so what I try to do, I know a kid does the same thing, and some of our other coaching students, we try to, as I told you guys earlier, one of my students took a three-bedroom, one bath, and this is typical. Took a three-bedroom, one bath, and turned it into a four-bedroom, two bath. Now, why did they do that? They did that because four bedrooms pay between 2,000 and plus. Or you can do what I call a Kia. And what a Kia is you take a three-bedroom, one bath, you turn the living room into a bedroom, you go downstairs in the basement. If the basement is big enough, and you put two bedrooms and a bathroom in the basement. And so actually, a kid did that to a property in DC. So she had three, four, five, six bedrooms, and I believe two and a half baths in the house. And she got over $7,000. That's DC. She got over $7,000 for that property. So just be mindful of that. We almost never, to be honest with you, buy a property we try not to just buy a property where it's just three bedrooms. We try to get as many bedrooms in the property as we can, um, so that we can get more rent. And there's a need. There's a need for more bedrooms. There's a lot of voucher holders that have three, four, five, six children. And so there's a need. And so I almost always try to have at least four bedrooms in a property. If I buy the property and it doesn't have it, which is preferable because I can buy probably buy a 3 bedroom cheaper than I can a 4 or 5 bedroom, but then renovate the basement, take out a living room, do some of those things to get more bedrooms. Now, notice I did not say more bathrooms. I said more bedrooms. You're not going to get any more money with more bathrooms. And so, Section 8 office, they look at bedrooms and they go up on the vouchers according to bedrooms. Now, me personally, if I have a bedroom on a level, so if I have a bedroom on the main level, I'd like to put a bathroom there. If I have a bedroom in the basement, me personally, and I don't have to, but I just like to have a bathroom on that level. But these are some good numbers as it relates to Section 8 rental standards in Baltimore. And so Valerie, Valerie, I'm going to go over some communities, but since there's a variation, for example, 3 bedrooms between 1,700 and 2,100, it just kind of depends on where you are in Baltimore. And then maybe there's a slide where I go over some communities. We'll bring Alex in to talk about that. All right. Section 8 inspections. And so inspections are a big deal with Section 8. And so you do have to go through an inspection process. They are not going to allow their voucher holders, to live in an unsafe property. So properties must meet housing quality standards, safe electrical and plumbing, functional heating system, not necessarily an HVAC system, but a functional heating system. So there must be heat. Now, also notice that they didn't say air condition, must be heat, working appliances, safe doors and windows, and no major safety hazards. Anything to add to that, Akia?
I actually have yet to do, oh, this is for the initial inspection?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yes. So you actually have to, so your bedroom has, you have to have a legal bedroom, which, you have to window and egress has to be 5.7 square feet. So someone can exit. You have to have, the room has to be 70 square meters, 70 square feet, excuse me. You have to have a closet. You have to have screens and blinds in every window. They will fill you if you don't have that. Um, for DCHA, again, I'm speaking for DC. 70% of the sunlight coming into a room has to cover 70% of the floor in that room. You have to have smoke detectors. I think Greg talked about, but you have to have also monoxide detectors placed in very specific places, and it has to be wired. Um, I'm sure there's a lot other that I'm missing. Honestly, you can search it online, and I always say this too, unless you're like a slumlord, right? Like your place is just kind of, oh, it has to be empty by the time the inspector comes. Like you have to kind of really just kind of be a slumlord to fail. Or sometimes there's been times, there was this one instance where for some reason my stove, like you could turn on the burner on my stove and three of them turned on and one of them didn't. And the inspector was like, just send me a video later today of the fourth one turning on and I'll pass you. Right? Because he could get a feel of the place, and knew I wasn't a slumlord. And there was another instance where I think two of my windows were missing a screen. And he was like, just go get them and then send me a video or a photo of them later today. I'll pass you. Right? So they're easygoing, if you're just an upstanding and like, yeah, a good landlord.
If you get the right inspector.
Yes. Yes.
It's not written in stone.
Yes, yes.
I have
I haven't had a woman inspector yet, Greg. All men
I'm
with
sure. I'm sure.
I have one question about what you said earlier, Greg. When you say they all have to have heaters, are space heaters um allowed, or they just have to have?
Yeah, space heaters, but generally the houses in Baltimore have radiators. And so what some investors will do is rip out the radiators and put a full-blown HVAC system in there. But most of them have radiators, and so that's fine as long as the radiators are working. And
Um,
then what some investors will do is they'll either for AC, they'll either put a window unit in or what's called a mini split on the wall for AC.
I think I'm using the wrong word then. I mean, if you got a electric heater that you just got to plug it in the wall and you can move it from room to room or house to house, and you put one of those in there, is that acceptable? That's what I
No,
mean.
no, that's not acceptable.
I was kind of thinking it wouldn't be, but I just want to make sure.
All right, so we've got a couple questions. Latoya wants to know if you don't pass, how long do you have? Generally, the inspector will tell you a week, and so they'll come back in a week. So if there's something that's not passed, um, generally speaking, they'll say, "Well, we'll come back in a week." And to Akia's point, they are pretty lenient. Um, do they approve voucher tenancies? The house is net. So the answer is no. That's a good question. I think this is Des. Um, no. If there's generally speaking, if there's a board up next door, they're not going to approve the property. There's a board up next door in Baltimore. The only other thing I can think of that's not on here, um, there's a lead-based paint. So you have to have the house tested for lead, and then you have to have a rental license. And so you've got to get a rental license in Baltimore and all jurisdictions now. You've got to have a rental license. You have to have a lead-based paint certificate, and they're going to want to see proof of insurance, that kind of thing. Let's see. I think we got a couple other questions here. Yep. Yep. Yeah, this replay, we'll send it out, but it'll be on my YouTube channel. All right, let's go. Okay, how to pass inspections the first time. Ensure all utilities work. Repair handrails and stairs. Install smoke detectors and monoxide detectors. Fix leaks and water issues. Ensure appliances operate properly. Um, I don't think there's anything else. You think of anything else, Akia?
I will say for the handrails, the handrail has to extend at least to the first three steps. So if you take one, two, three steps and then a fourth and the handrail isn't there, that doesn't like that's not right for DCHA. That will be a thing because I actually had an inspector tell me that, and I had to add like a 2 foot handrail so to pass that 1, 2, 3, 4 step, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, that's
So Antoine asked a good question. Do you recommend a 15-year mortgage for Section 8? And so I don't. I would prefer you to get a 30-year mortgage. It's going to help with your cash flow. Um, those that know me um, have heard me say a million times, cash flow is king. So as a real estate investor, we want cash flow. That's why we invest for cash flow. And so as much as a 15-year mortgage will help pay off the house, I believe in cash flow. Now, if you want to pay towards the principal, you can if you want to escalate paying off that mortgage. But I wouldn't necessarily be in a huge rush to pay off the mortgage because the extra money that you're paying can go towards buying another property. And again, if you want to pay extra towards the principal, I would pay it the 15th of the month and just pay the equivalent of the taxes and insurance, 15th of the month um, to escalate. But no, I wouldn't necessarily get a 15-year mortgage because that's going to eat into your cash flow. And that's why we buy these properties is for cash flow.
Greg, can I actually ask you a question that I've never inquired about? Would you say the DC inspection process versus the Baltimore City inspection process for Section 8, would you say one is more lenient than the other or st stringent?
And so my experience with both is Baltimore's a lot easier.
Mm,
It's a whole lot easier. I had a property where I mean just like you, there was a couple things they came to inspect. There was a couple things that they wanted done better, and they said just take pictures and show and send it to me. Fix it, but I don't need to come back out here.
mm,
And so I feel like they're lenient, but to be honest with you, both DC and Baltimore, the inspectors are pretty lenient.
mm.
So this is a property that in 21229, Edmondson Village, which most of my investors knows, probably my favorite section of Baltimore. Um, one of our students bought this property on Edmondson Avenue for 80,000, put 80 into it. This property, the ceiling height in the basement was about 6'7", wasn't high enough to put a bedroom and a bathroom in the basement. So what they did was they put a bedroom. This is a row house. Was it an interior unit? I don't think it's an interior unit, but they put a bedroom and a bathroom on the main level. So you walk in, to the right's the bedroom, and then they took up part of the dining room for a bathroom. And then upstairs is three bedrooms, one bath. So they made the house four bedrooms and two baths, kind of the model that I teach. And so all in at 160, they were able to get rent of 2,500, a voucher holder. They purchased the property using a hard money lender. So they bought the property with 80. They needed another 80 for rehab. So 160 they was able to get from a hard money lender. They renovated the property, had three draws, renovated the property, rented the property out, and then they refinanced out using one of the lenders that we use for DSCR. They're making $1,000 a month of positive cash flow. So they had to refinance 80,000. I mean 160,000. But because they because when the house was appraised, it was appraised for less than 70% of the after repair value, they didn't have to bring any money to the table. And so they was able to refinance bringing no money to the table. And so
Could you
James,
say that again?
I- well, yeah, so James, yeah, we share our lenders. We definitely share our lenders, if that's the question. Yep. Did somebody have a question?
I was just asking if you could repeat what you said about the not having to put any money down part again.
So on a DSCR loan, um, if the amount that you're financing is 70% or lower than the appraised value, so you've got 30% equity in the property, then on a DSCR loan, you don't have to bring any money to the table. You with me? So James, put in your calculator 250,000. Put 250,000 in your calculator. You with me? Now multiply that by 70%. You get 175, right?
Correct.
So the lender will lend you 175. Now, if what they're lending you, so in this case, you had to pay off 160. So they had to pay off 160 with that 175, which means theoretically they could have cashed out $15,000. So in this case, because of these numbers, they didn't have to come to the table with any money when they refinanced. So the only money they came up with was the money with the hard money lender. You got it, James? And you can contact me offline if you want, and I can go over that with you again.
Okay, thank you.
And basically, what I just described is the Burr method again. So you want to buy the property right, and we use a formula: 70% of the after repair value minus repair costs. So we want to buy it right, um, renovate it right, and then rent it. My preference is Section 8. And then we have to refinance out of that hard money loan because hard money is that's temporary financing. So we want permanent financing. And as investors, we use DSCR loan. Now everything that I'm mentioning, I got a 4-day course starting Monday, you guys. I'll tell you more about that. On day 4, I bring in a lender on day 4 that goes over what a DSCR loan is on day 4 of our 4-day course. And then on that same day, I go over creative financing strategies. I also go over hard money lenders as well. And so Tunisia is asking, how do you pay your hard money lender back? And so the scenario I just gave James, we're refinancing, we're able to get 175. We use that 175 to pay off the hard money lender, to pay off the 160. And so we're going to refinance out and pay off the hard money lender. So you pay them back through the refinance. Antoine is saying, do you make all your rentals look like the same? Flooring, cabinets, doors, vanities, other fixtures? Now, Antoine, I'm going to answer it my way. All my properties look the same. I have no creativity. I have no imagination. They all look good, but they're all the same. I use all the same paint colors. I use all the same cabinets, the same countertops, everything. But let's see what IKEA does. What do you do, Miss IKEA?
Well, so this is my biggest, Nash Street, this is the biggest project I've done. I mean, phew, I'm like 120 grand in. Definitely over budget, but I know moving forward, I'm gonna just duplicate over and over and over again.
It's funny because the house I went to today, the same colors that I used today, and I said, I need it. I used like 11 years later, everything, the countertops, everything. And so I said to myself, I need to change this up because colors have changed. I mean, we've gone back to like earth tones and things like that. Now, the grays are almost out now. So now all the investors are using earth tones. So I've got to go back. But to answer Antoine's question, all my houses look the same. And primarily because I buy in bulk. And so I buy, my paint in bulk. I just try to buy all my materials so I can use them over and over and over again. All right. All right. So here's some neighborhoods, you guys. Um, and I don't know if Alex is still here. Oh,
Yes, sir. I'm here.
so Alex, and so I just put some neighborhoods that I think that are really good areas, some areas that I've bought properties in. And what I would consider kind of B minus C plus neighborhoods that make for great rental properties in Baltimore. I've got Harlem Park, Waverly, or better Waverly, Bel Air Edison, which I was first introduced to, um, Charles Village, which is in the same zip code as Waverly, 21218. Park Heights, which is the new mayor's putting in a lot of money there. That's where he's from. Patterson Park is probably more of a B plus neighborhood, but a lot of investors are buying there. Upton and Pigtown. What is your opinion on some of the better neighborhoods or the neighborhoods that I chose?
Yeah, look, definitely. I think you've got several winners there, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, I would even add a few here that are also up and coming and more established. Charles Village, certainly Remington, possibly Reservoir Hill. Barclay is in the triangle of the Waverlys. There's like three Waverlys, so Barclay is definitely in that triangle as well. Even it's a little more of a slightly higher price point, but you can find some deals in Mount Vernon, Midtown Belvedere. If you're like a Kia and you're after the multis, right, or the bigger houses, they've got definitely opportunities there. You just gotta watch real quick because of where it's located. But you got the University of Baltimore there, Baltimore Penn is there, Amtrak, the Symphony is there, those areas as well. So those are opportunities as well, right in the city. But I would agree with your list, especially Harlem Park, very low entry point. And especially if you have experience with rehabbing vacants or you have a mentor and a contractor who has experience with it, good opportunities there in Harlem Park as well. But yes, I completely agree with the list, and I just added a few more there.
Excuse me. Those lists that y'all are saying, is it possible we can, or is it going to be a list that we can look at later, or do we supposed to just get it from what y'all just said?
Yeah, I'll send you a list. I'll also, like I said, I'm going to send this video to you guys,
Okay.
and it'll be on my YouTube channel. But I have a list of the top 10 neighborhoods vetted by Alex, our Baltimore expert. And
Greg is the expert, you all. Don't let him
no,
tell you
I'm
that.
not. No, I'm not. You're the Baltimore expert, okay?
He's like live. He's like ChatGPT live for Baltimore City.
As,
Thank you,
as
Akia. I appreciate you, dear.
you guys have a question about Baltimore, just let us know. Um, and so I like, as you know, Edmondson Village. And give us a little history on Edmondson Village.
Yeah, so Edmondson Village is incredible. So a lot of people don't realize it, but Baltimore certainly did not start out as a majority African American city. Many different cultures have certainly been part of Baltimore City. One special area of that is what we know as Edmondson Village. So the person who actually founded the village, he was an architect, and I believe he was from Scotland. I don't think he was from Ireland. I could be wrong about that. But he moved to the area and he had this vision of creating a community that was very similar to the community that he grew up in. And so that's why those houses, when you go over to Edmondson Village, especially when you're on Edmondson Avenue, on the same side as the shopping center, you're going to see a very interesting kind of architecture for those houses. It reminded him he built homes that were like the community he came out of. It gets even more interesting. He was a very he was a very devout Catholic, and he had a daughter who was named Bernardine. And so after he builds the community, he says to himself, you know what? I need to build a church. I want to build a church, and I want to build it for the individuals, the residents, to practice their faith. And then once I build it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to donate it to the archdiocese. You know what the archdiocese named it? St. Bernardine's. And that's why you have St. Bernardine's Catholic Church. And the granite that it is built out of came from Port Deposit, Maryland, where a lot of the downtown buildings in Baltimore City came out of the granite that was mined from Port Deposit, Maryland. What's also interesting is some of you may be old enough to remember a very colorful Maryland politician by the name of William Donald Schaefer. William Donald Schaefer lived in Edmondson Village from his birth until he became governor. He lived in I think he was on Edgewood Road. And the lady who bought the house from him had a Maryland flag hanging out front as an ode to him. Matter of fact, during his funeral, as they took him to the cemetery, they did a ride through the city, and the funeral car and the funeral um, motorcade actually stopped in the village in front of the house. So William Donald Schaefer, he was governor, he was comptroller, he was mayor, he was a councilman, he was a state's attorney. He lived in the village from childhood straight through to until he became governor. So, the shopping center there has had some renovations. Some of the buildings have burned in the shopping center, but the shopping center is being rebuilt. And there are 40% investors who live in the neighborhood who have invested in it. So Edmondson Village is an incredible spot, but a lot of people don't realize the history
And
behind
see,
how it came to be. Greg's about to cut me off. The history about how it came to be, and why it looks the way it does and the feel that it has. It's an incredible opportunities there.
I was just making the point that you are truly the expert.
Can't help it. I love the history. It's incredible.
And you love the history. And Alex is part of our coaching program. He just recently purchased a property there in 21229.
1229. Yeah.
And so he's currently renovating. Alex, Latoya wants to get your thoughts on Westport.
Okay. So Westport. Great question. Westport is a tale of two cities. I'm going to give you my straight up honest opinion. Westport is a tale of two cities. It's sandwiched between Cherry Hill and downtown. Of course, Cherry Hill during the Great Migration, the city of Baltimore wanted to find a place for the African Americans participating in the Great Migration to stay. It was going to be Herring Run, which is off of Bel Air Road, which of course is by a great restaurant Greg likes to frequent called Bertha's. However, the decision was made to actually encourage those African Americans to move to a place called Cherry Hill. And Cherry Hill is right by the Middle Branch area. Next to it is Westport. You've got a lot of low income going on in Westport. There's quite a bit of it. Like I said, it's sandwiched between downtown and also Alburn Cemetery, which is a very historic African American cemetery. When African Americans couldn't be buried in other areas, they went to Mount Auburn. The light rail is near it, so Westport really hasn't had the wonderful development that other areas near downtown like Pigtown, Ridgely's Delight have had. Now, what's interesting is several years ago, Patrick Turner, who built Silo Point, which is right outside of 95. It's a huge grain silo that this guy turned into condos. He bought the waterfront area behind Westport with this vision of multi-use, mixed-use development. He went bankrupt, and it took the city 10, 11 years to get that property back from him. They finally got it back, and in cooperation with Ryan Homes, they are building houses on the Westport waterfront. When you go over 395, you can see them. There's about 10 of them up right now. And those houses are all in the 350s and up, new construction. The hope is that that kind of infusion, along with what is that infusion, along with the other development around the waterfront, which is now known as the Baltimore Peninsula. It used to be Port Covington. The hope is that all of that is going to help energize and put some funds into Westport and bring it up to what it is to be. You can find opportunities in Westport. Greg knows. Greg was introduced to opportunities, and IKEA was on the tour with me, and we saw a portfolio that was being liquidated. You can find opportunities there, but like Baltimore City, it's block specific. You could be on a block with a bunch of vacants. Some of us don't have a tolerance for that. So look, I say, listen, I think somebody's making money in Westport, I'll tell you that. But you got to look at your overall strategy and determine if this is the right time to invest there. For Alex, I would hold off on Westport temporarily, unless I'm in a block like Sydney Avenue, maybe. If I'm in one of those blocks where I'm not seeing vacants and things like that, the price is low enough. Like Greg said, that rent's going to be strong, especially if you're doing Section 8. Hey, it might be worth it to you. But again, if you want to invest in Westport, get there, walk it, see it for yourself. then determine if it's a good opportunity for you. I think that once that waterfront area gets rebuilt, the city's going to make some changes. I'll just say it that way. I won't get into what I think they're going to do. And then that area is going to come around. It's just slow. It's going to be very slow.
All right, thanks for that. G. Marie, you have a question?
Yes, I was just wondering when he was talking about different areas, what he thought about Washington Village and what's the other place I think I mentioned to you Druid Hill Park. What does he think about that?
Can I respond to that, Greg, or do you want me to wait?
No, go ahead, but quickly, we're Akia's tired.
I would.
Okay.
You're welcome, Latoya. I would say two thumbs up. Washington Village had a lot of renovation. I know she's tired of me, right? Washington Village had a lot of resurgence back in the 80s and 90s. Many of those properties have been renovated. A lot of them are rentals. So I would say Washington Village, yes, just check your block. Same thing with Druid Park, that whole area. I don't think you can really go wrong over there. You're on the edge of the reservoir, which is being renovated. You've got the zoo, the Maryland Zoo there, Auchentoslie Terrace, which has great properties.
Beautiful, beautiful
You're
property.
you're you're right between Ricestown Road and Park Heights. So I would say those are great areas.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
All right, common mistakes, you guys. Biggest mistake any investor will make anywhere is buying a property wrong or buying on the wrong block. Um, Poor tenants, picking poor tenants, underestimating rehab costs, and ignoring inspection requirements. Any other mistakes you can think of, Akia?
Um, I hate to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but I understand why some investors stay clear from purchasing properties that already have a tenant in place because it's like you don't know what you're gonna get. So yeah, there's just so much out of your control when that comes to like tenancy. Uh, Underestimate rehab cost. I would say too, and you've talked about this too, Greg, is like I think sometimes landlords make the mistake, and I hear it all the time from prospective tenants who are looking to move, where the landlord gets them in, and then they can care less about just upkeep with the place or any concerns that the tenant may have. Um, and I do think that's a disservice as like a landlord and an investor. So.
Well, I think the problem is the landlords, they don't have the money to upkeep the property. They think the cash flow that they get every month is to spend, and it's not. You've got to save that money. You can't spend any of that money. You've got to save that money for at least 90 days. And then every 90 day, make a decision on whether or not you can spend any of that money or not. But you've got to have a certain amount, I'll say 3 to 6 months expenses in reserve just in case something goes wrong. And as much as landlords don't want to be bad landlords, there's a certain desperation that they have in having to spend the money. That money, that cash flow is not for you to spend. Hold that cash flow. Only that cash flow should be going towards reserve to renovate the property if something happens to it, um, to maintain it, and it should be going towards um, possibly paying down on the mortgage. That's what it should go towards. And then if there's some money left over once you have some reserve, now start taking some of that money. But the problem that I see and the mistake that landlords make is they spend every penny of their cash flow so that if something goes wrong, and something is going to go wrong, you guys, something's going to go wrong, they simply just don't have the money to fix it. Another mistake, and I want you to speak to this, Akia, another mistake that landlords make is they never ever go back to increase the rent. They
Mm.
start off with, let's say, nowadays, 23, $2,500 a month. They look up 5 years from now and they never ever went up on the rent. That's a huge mistake. Speak to that. What should they do?
And is this Greg only within the landscape of Section 8 or just
General.
landlord in general? Okay.
Section 8
So
too, obviously, but we've
okay.
got some people in our program that they've got market tenants and they just never went up on the rent.
So speaking generally, so when I bought my 4 unit, the there's an elderly lady in one unit and she was paying $875 for a 2 bedroom, one bath. And I always find it funny because like there's nowhere in DC you can find a 2 bedroom, one bath for $875, but the prior landlord just never increased the rent. I think she was there for about 15 years. So I come in and I start increasing the rent every year. It's kind of pulling teeth, but I do think just having that cadence of every year increasing the rent, I think that's a good thing to do. I mean, if you were in a commercial apartment like those high rises, they do it every year. So I think as being a small landlord, just being mindful of that. As far as Section 8, so I don't know if a lot of landlords know the process in which you have to put in a increased request. So on year one, so let's say you have a tenant that moves in November 1st, then the following November 1st, 60 days before that, you put in a request, right? If you miss November 1st, I think you're SOL. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but I just know 60 days before that 1 year comes up, you put in a request. And the two options that they have is change in circumstances, which for me, like I'm like, hey, I'll cover utilities and the tenant doesn't have to, or the market rents in the area have gone up. So you select an option and then you put in a request and they'll come back and tell you yay or nay on the amount you're now seeking.
But and part of the reason you are a landlord and you are an investor is to build wealth.
Mhm.
And theoretically, you try to go up on the rent every year, 5%. By law, I don't think you can go over 5%. But you want to increase your cash flow every year. And just be mindful of that. Now, wherever you go, wherever your tenants go, the landlord is going to go up on the rent. And so you should too. This is a business. We want to have a good relationship with our tenants, but at the same time, it's a business. We've got to protect the business for ourselves and for our families. And so you've got to go up the rent. You got to go up on the rent to make as much money as possible. All right, building a portfolio. Um, Start with one property. And so how do you get started? That's the question. How do you get started? How do you get started with one property? We've talked about it a little bit, but I think it starts with the mindset. You've got to say to yourself, I want to get in the game of real estate, just like I did. At 17 years old, I read an encyclopedia, 95% of the richest families in the world gain their wealth through real estate. And I was hooked at 17. I said, I'm going to get into real estate. But for whatever the reason is for you, and hopefully it's building wealth, have supplemental income, retire earlier, um, build a legacy for your family, you make that decision. And then I think you need to be around like-minded people. We hear that all the time, but it's just true. And then you've got to know where the properties are, qualify for the properties financially, um, get introduced to contractors, all that. In our 4-day course next week, I'm going to talk about all these things, including adding a 5th day live property tour where I'm going to go to one or two properties in Baltimore as a 5th day live tour and just show you the neighborhoods, go over repair costs, just go over how to get started, basically. Um, and then building the portfolio, start with one property. Start with one property, get that underway, get that rented out, refinance that property, and then you go to your and stabilize the rent income, reinvest the profits, continue acquiring properties. And then that's what you do. That's what we do. That's what all of us do in our program. And part of our coaching program, we have what's called an accountability group. And in one of our groups last year, there's about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 people in the group. Actually, Alex headed the group. He was in charge of the group. They met every Friday at 4 o'clock, and Alex did a wonderful job with his accountability group. He did such a good job that every single person in his group either bought and held a property or wholesaled a property. Everyone in his group. Give me one reason, just one reason why you think, Alex, everybody in your, aside from your greatness, Alex, um, but everybody um, either bought and held a property or wholesaled a property in your group. What's one reason why you think that that happened?
You know, the number one thing when it comes to real estate investing, they take action. Again, right? We can be in. I mean, you all. I sat through 4 of Greg's 4 days before I decided to jump in. But you have got to take action. You get all this education. You keep watching the Zooms and keep showing up to the events. But you've got on some level, you don't, every, like Greg said, taking action. Some people will wholesale. Some people will also do some other activities within real estate investing. Other people will buy a property. Some people will work on a subject to deal. There's different ways to move forward in real estate. But the number one thing, we had a group of folks who were eager to take action.
Um,
And
Ak-
can I give you
Akia
your
was in the group.
flowers? Go ahead, Greg.
No, no, you
Oh,
go ahead, Akia. You go.
Uh,
You were in his group.
yeah,
no, she
yeah.
was.
I was gonna say if I can give Alex his flowers.
Oh,
First off, I had to get voted in the group, so I jumped ship from one
Barely
accountability
made it.
group.
You barely made it, Akia.
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
So I had to get voted in. And I will say, like, Alex, you brought like this, not only did you brought a love and you brought like an intensity, like a good intensity to our
Oh,
accountability group that was you, I mean, to your point, you're right. We all came in, we were already eager. But it's like you lit that fire underneath us and you kind of
oh.
made sure we kind of always was like headed to the goal, headed to the objective, and like why we're here, like why we became students of Greg. And so I'm really grateful for just your leadership.
Thank you, Akia. I appreciate that.
Akia,
Thank you.
he would like seriously get upset at you guys sometimes.
Yep.
Like it was a
This
real
is se-
thing.
this
He'd
is
get
serious
upset.
stuff. This is serious stuff.
It's all good.
Thank
But
y'all. Thank
honestly,
y'all.
you guys, that's how you get started. I mean, it's hard to Alex's point, it's hard doing this by yourself. Looking at YouTube videos, reading books, it's hard. You got to be around people. You got to be around the right people. And that's how you're going to really escalate your goals, build wealth faster, minimize your mistakes. Um, Within his group, they actually, on a few occasions, actually went out in the field.
Sure
They
did.
would meet virtually every Friday at 4 o'clock. And we do have an accountability group that meets at 4 o'clock now on Fridays. But his group would also go out in the field during tax sale time, which is around now. They went and looked at tax sales. I mean, they learned about tax sales and bid on
Right.
tax sales, and so they did
That's
their thing. And so that's how you get started, you guys. You've
We
got
even Greg, we even put a we put a contract. I saw Justin on here. Justin represented us, Justin Johnson. We put a contract on. I wrote an EMD check. I'm like, let's go.
yeah, y'all bid on a property in Harlem Park. I remember that.
Yeah.
Called me.
Yeah.
You called me on a Sunday when you guys were meeting. I was watching football, and you disrupted my whole
You
Sunday.
were gracious enough to get on that call at 9 p.m. and talk to every one of us. You were gracious enough. Greg, don't you, we just appreciate you so much. We just love you.
So you guys, I've kept you guys far too long. I'm going to answer all your questions, but As you guys can see, we do have an expertise in Baltimore. I've learned Baltimore. I've only been investing in Baltimore for about less than about maybe 8 years. And I was very reluctant to go to Baltimore. I'm primarily a DC, PG County, Anne Arundel County investor. Started off in DC, all my properties in DC. One of my colleagues, Marquise, was killing it in Baltimore. He said, "You need to come," and I went and I loved it and just started buying up properties in certain areas that he told me to buy up properties, and I've been buying ever since. In Baltimore, I've bought and held. I have wholesaled a lot of properties there, and I have fixed and flip. I've used some creative financing strategies there, and so to get started, you guys just need to be around these resources. Not only is Akia an expert, she's made herself an expert at Section 8, she's also an expert in financing. Like she knows every hard money lender, she knows all their rates, and she really knows how to finance deals. And so now when people asking me about a hard money lender, I say just call Akia. Akia has done all the research for herself. Um, but I do think that another reason why Alex's group and our whole group and in its entirety have been so successful is because all of us are givers. We learn something and we give to the whole group. And that's what's going to make you guys successful. So you've got to be a part of an investor networking group. Um, where we do deal analysis. I go out in the field all the time. I will be in Baltimore on Saturday looking at deals for some of my investors. And some of the other investors that are in our group will tag along with me. And so and then we give. I mean, we're open to giving. And so that's how you guys, if you're interested in our group, you can always go to my scheduler. I'll give you that information in a minute. Um, I'm going to answer all the questions, but we do have a 4-day course. And in the 4 days, we go over the best neighborhoods to invest in. We go over a business plan. We go over wholesaling, fix and flip, buy and hold, and all the different buy and hold strategies. We go over how to find properties, how to find deals, creative financing strategies. Like I said, I'll have a lender on Thursday. So this all starts next week. It starts on Monday. You guys can go to BBC 4 Day to join. I've added a fifth day. It's the first month I've ever added a fifth day. So we've got a bonus live tour, and so we're going to go to a house in Baltimore for the fifth day. You'll meet us there, and we're going to walk through the house. We're going to look at the neighborhood. We're going to estimate repair costs. I'm going to show you how we can fit in a bedroom and a bathroom in the basement. I'm going to go over rental comps and tell you what Section 8 will pay for a 4 bedroom, 2 bath. And so we'll go over all these things. The first 4 days will be virtual 8 o'clock every day next week, and then we'll be live. And so go to BBC 4 Day. You need to be a part of that, you guys. You need to be a part of that. Um, so next steps, if you're interested in our 4 day course or to talk about our coaching program, you can always go to my scheduler, gbschedule.com. gbschedule.com. I will put Keith, put my schedule for me in the chat, or go to BBC 4 Day for our 4 day course. Before I get you guys out of here, I want to make sure that we've answered all your questions. Once the property is rented with the voucher tenant, is the listing placed inactive in the voucher system? Also, how soon is the property placed on the list when working on the property? You would want the property renovated first before you put it on the list. Um, Once the property is rented, let's see. Yeah, I mean, once it's rented, it's taken off. If it's on the market, it's taken off the market. There's no more listing then because it's already rented out. Jean Marie says she's locked in on the day, so she'll be at the 4-day course. Do you have some contractors you recommend? Do I have some contractors I recommend? Ooh, that's a tough one. And so I'll be honest with you guys. My preference is not to recommend contractors. Um, if you twist my arm, I will. And the reason I don't like recommending contractors because I basically have three crews that I've worked with for, I was with one today, Luis. But they'll do a great job for me, and they may or may not do a good job for you. And then I look bad, I feel bad, and so it's just hard. But I have recommended my contractors, but my preference, if I'm honest, is not. The best way to find a good contractor is going to neighborhoods, and we mentioned some neighborhoods if you want Baltimore, and just driving those neighborhoods. And then look at all the renovations going on in the neighborhoods and look at their work. Get out the car, look at their work, get a business card. I told you guys I went to one of my properties today. I did have one of my contractors with me, but I also had another contractor give me an estimate as well. And I found that contractor out in the field. So I found him out in the field. Um, Akia, how did you find your contractor?
He was working on a property next door to me, and then I was like, "Hey, I would love to see your work." And then he showed me it, and I will say contractors love showing off their work. So to Greg's point, if you ever see someone working and the door's open, just like, "Hey, can I come in?" You'll be surprised if they're not like, "Come in, come in." And then I started off small projects with him, and then I've moved to this is the biggest project I've been working on, but we've built that rapport for sure over years actually.
Um, yeah, Jacqueline, just contact me. You can pay by Venmo. Just contact me. Either either on my schedule, you can just get on my schedule, or just send me. You can text me. I'll give you my phone number. You can just text me. You can pay by Venmo. How are we dealing with squatters? Um, I think we spent a whole Tuesday night coaching Q&A on squatters a few months ago. Um, Squatters, you just got to deal with them. I mean, you just got to, there's many different ways to deal with squatters. It's inevitable that you're going to run into squatters. It's inevitable that people are going to break into your house while you're renovating. You just deal with them. I mean, the legal way to deal with them is you've got to take them to landlord tenant court and get them evicted. That's the legal way of dealing with squatters, and probably the best way. But do I know some investors that's gone to the house and taken out the windows in the middle of summer? Do I know some investors that have gone to the street and turned off the water? Um, do I know some investors that have done some other things? Yeah, I know some investors that's done those things. Yes, I do. That's how you deal with squatters. Let's see. I'm hoping that I answered all the questions. Once the property is rented for the tenant, yeah, I think we answered that one. We never buy properties at market value, you guys. We never buy properties at market value. We stick to a certain formula, and it's 70% of the after repair value minus repair costs. So we're not buying properties at market value. Are those plentiful? Absolutely. Absolutely. We had some of our coaching students in Baltimore today looking at properties to buy. And I think Keith, my brother, who's on here, said that we were writing a contract on one. So we have properties. Um, and so So Antoine, yeah, we do property management in my brokerage. I don't personally, but I have two of my agents have property management companies. So I can hook you up with that. All right. I think I've answered all the questions. Any closing remarks, Alex and Akia?
Mm,
Any words of wisdom? We've got some newer investors that want to get into buying and holding.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, you said it earlier, Greg, if I can just echo that before I actually bought my first property, I was claiming to be a real estate investor for like 5 years prior to. And it felt weird a little bit, like, hey, I'm a real estate investor. And I would go to networking events, and this is before I joined Greg's Platinum Coaching group, which I wish I would have known at the beginning of my journey. It was weird to introduce myself as an investor, even though I knew I didn't own property. But just watching videos, wearing that title for myself, it really helped me to move in the direction to actually like start pulling the trigger on, okay, well, now I'm an investor. I have property. So just know that anything that we do, you can do it too. It's just a matter of like not reinventing the wheel, right? Like once you understand the formula, then how to crunch numbers, having a accountability group and joining a community, all which, you know, Greg offers. And I don't get kickbacks for this. I just want to let you know that this is genuine. Once you enter that space, the sky's the limit for you as an investor.
Thank you for that. Alex, any closing remarks, my brother?
I would echo, I would totally agree, and I would encourage folks to join the 5 day and take action.
There you go. Um, I would say Tunisia. Um, so you're renting to students, which is fine. Student housing is great. I think that I one of the reasons why Alex actually joined us over a year ago was I have someone that's part of me that was doing co-living, um, professional co-living, and Alex that resonated with him. And so Alex joined our group, got to know, my colleague, and Alex is doing a co-living house now. And so, Tunisia, one thing that you might consider if you don't want to do the student housing is the professional co-living model, where you're turning like the living room into a room, um, living room into a room. If there's 3 bedrooms, 1 bath upstairs, you're turning that into a 2 bedroom, 2 bath. Same thing in the basement. And so you're getting like 5 bedrooms and a number of bathrooms in the property, but you're renting out each room. And so that's what you might want to do with your property. I think you have a property close to Morgan, and that's what Alex is doing. He's in the middle of working on a property now where he's doing that. Jackie, I put my number in the chat, and so if you want to text me, and so we can work out the payment for next week. Um, I think G. Marie, did you have a question?
Yes, when Akia was talking about buying properties that already have tenants, my only question was, um, when you do that, can you how do you vet the existing tenant, and if possible?
You,
Yeah, go ahead, Akia.
you can, well, to start off, you can ask for a rent roll from the seller to, this is if they're a Section 8 tenant, or even if they're not, like just to see the payments that they've been up to date every month. So definitely get a rent roll. You can, well, if they're a Section 8 tenant, I think there is more of a benefit because as soon as you actually acquire that property and you fill out the necessary paperwork, Section 8 will start paying you. Versus if their market, I've heard horror stories where market tenants have been excellent, and as soon as they know that ownership is changing to a new landlord, they switch up their whole tune. Um, what else? I actually had a friend who recently purchased two properties in DC, and he had the seller put $10,000 in escrow, um, just in case if the tenant that was in the property didn't move out by a certain day, that escrow amount would go to my friend, which I thought was pretty interesting. So you could put up kind of various measures in place to make sure you're protected.
You.
And so, Jackie, you also asked, how do you buy properties basically below market? And so there's various places. I'll go over that all of that next week in our 4-day course. But there's various ways, including off the internet. But we primarily buy properties off market deals. Akia actually has had a lot of, and Alex, they've had some success buying properties on the market on the MLS, but they did a great job, not only finding those deals that were already below market, but continuing to negotiate. They're both great negotiators and got those numbers down. But we primarily buy off-market properties where we're probably the only ones talking to the seller. And so we use inbound marketing, and I'll explain all this next week, to find those deals. But we find a ton of deals. We find probably at least 4 or 5 deals every single day. Well, we have at least 4 or 5 new appointments every single day. Every single day. We do enough marketing that we're finding these deals. But the key to what I just said is we're taking action and we're doing the marketing. And so we're doing that every single day. All right, you guys. Any last questions? Hopefully, James, Israel, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, my brother, and everybody else. 4-day course, BBC 4-day. If you guys want to schedule an appointment with me one-on-one, gbschedule.com. Let's do it, you guys. Let's stop sitting on the sidelines watching everybody else become wealthy. Take your first step forward. I want you guys to live up to your fullest potential. You just got to be around the right people. That's it. You just got to be around the right people and then take action. And that's what the people that have come through our program have done. One of the first steps is if you haven't taken our 4-day course, take our 4-day course. Take advantage of the live property tour. And let's get started. Let's go, you guys. All right, you guys, that's all I have. Jacqueline, hopefully you have my information to get a hold of me. Looking forward to seeing some of you guys next week. Take care, you guys. God bless. Oh, thank you so much, Akia. Thank you, Alex. Hopefully you guys learned a lot tonight. But you guys are givers, and that's why you guys get so much. And so thank you guys. Take care, everybody. God bless. Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Greg. Good night.
Night.